Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tablas Creek Instagram live conversation. I am your host, proprietor Jason Haas, and I could not be more excited for my guest this week. It is Cokie Ponikvar, who oversees Cokie's World of Wine. She has really burst onto the wine scene with some of the most interesting content. I think she sort of revolutionized the way that people approach wine education, and I can't wait for you to meet her. But while we wait for people to join, as I always do, I am going to share a few pictures as to what's going on here at the vineyard. So the big story right now is that we are in the middle of veraison, which is really pretty. The grapes are changing colors. This is Grenache. I'll show you Syrah, a little darker. It is one of the most beautiful times of year. The big story for us, though, is not that this is happening. This happens every year. It is the health and vigor that the vines have that will allow them to make this final push. So to give you a sense, I'm going to show you a couple of the varieties that are normally not that vigorous. So here's Mourvedre. Normally Mourvedre by August is starting to look a little brownish. It's starting to look like it's been running a marathon. This year it is deep green and looks amazing. I'm going to show you Roussanne next, which is even more of usually a struggle at this time of year. Leaves are starting to turn yellow, and instead it is this lush green and just looks great. I'm going to take you down one picture, like in between a couple of vine rows. You can see this is in between a row of Syrah and a row of Counoise. It looks like June, and it's August, and that is a function of the fact that it just has not been that hot here this year. It has been lots of days in the 70s and 80s or low 90s. We've only had 19 hours so far this summer where it's been over 95. Last year, by contrast, was about 160. So anyway, the vines are loving the relatively mild weather, and we're in a great position to make the final push. Other things that are going on, we are getting ready for harvest, even though harvest is probably still a month away. We're cleaning. Everything is being cleaned. The things that have been in barrel are being blended and put into big foudres and waiting for bottling next year. We have our last bottling of the year. We're putting the Esprit de Tablas into bottle week after next. Not last bottling of the year. Last bottling before harvest. We'll have one more with some whites in December. But this is going to free up all of the tank space and the smaller barrels for us to use in this year's harvest. And then finally, last thing before I invite Cokie to join, we have a new release. For those of you who followed the Alouette, the story about how we created this sort of chillable Grenache last year out of this plentiful and really good Grenache vintage. We did it again in 24. We have it in boxes. If you're on a mailing list, you should have just gotten an email announcing that. But we also did it in bottles for the first time, and we are also going to be making it available to restaurants and wine bars through wholesalers in a handful of states. So anyway, I could not be more excited about this. It is delicious. Okay, that's it. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to invite Cokie to join, and hopefully this will work. And I'm going to try that. Marvelous.
Awesome.
Who needs practice? Amazing. So I don't know, Cokie, if you were on when I gave the super quick introduction, but if for people who were not on yet, I mean, Cokie is an advanced somm, recently passed, is a incredible wine educator with an amazing following here on Instagram, and I think just a breath of fresh air in what is often a very traditional way of talking about wine. So welcome, Cokie.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. I was wondering, like, could we start by you telling me a little bit about sort of what the place of wine was like on your family table growing up? When did you get interested in it?
Yeah, so the place of wine on my family table, my parents are kind of just like a normal, um, I don't know, wine people. So not really into the wine industry, but they would drink wine with dinner. and occasionally spend more than $20 on a bottle if it was a special occasion. And I remember really little not really liking the smell of wine. And actually, there's a place near where I grew up in Canada called Oakville. And that's actually where I went to school. So I remember looking at the bottles and being so confused, like why it said Oakville on the wine label, because I didn't understand that. I don't know. I couldn't make sense of that. And then once I realized that was a place in Napa, that was a big aha moment. But yeah, no, I didn't really love the taste of wine as a young child. I wasn't super encouraged to love it or anything, but I found it later on in a more academic way. So I found it because of how intensive the knowledge is, and I didn't really realize that you could study wine so deeply. So as soon as I learned that you could, I was super excited, and yeah.
So did you have a wine that kind of turned you on to the potential of what it could be, sort of an aha kind of wine?
Um, so for me, no. I actually just learned about the Master Sommelier program and blind tasting is kind of what first got me into it. So I've definitely had a lot of wines that have mind blown me along the way, but not necessarily a like one wine that got me into it.
It's super interesting because I think that is not the order in which most people choose to study wine. And I think it comes through in the way that you talk about it. It is definitely like the pursuit of that knowledge that um, I think is the lens through which you share your excitement about it. And like, is that like it does it could you see that earlier in your other academic pursuits? Is this are you somebody who always likes to find a subject and really dive
Yeah.
deep into it?
For sure. I'm super intense about things, and I've always been that way. So I really like to hyperfixate on things, and I'm trying to think of other examples. I got really into road cycling for a little bit, and I was convinced I was going to go pro for that, and I guess I could have, but I don't know how I would have done. But yeah, like I kind of just love to give my whole self to something, and wine is the perfect place to do that. But I always get in deep flow states, like reading books or all kinds of stuff. Growing up, it was the same thing. But I never really loved school that much, which is an interesting thing, because
Huh.
for wine, like, you're learning, but it's self study, and I deeply care about the wine study more than I did in school, which is a whole new thing.
Maybe you just needed to find the right subject.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then who knew I would be studying all night for exams? Or that's crazy.
So I mean I think there's a pretty significant leap between like liking something enough to want to study it and making a career out
Mhm.
of that. Like, did you go into the starts of your studies of wine thinking like this is a career, or was it more an academic pursuit?
Yeah, so it was definitely an academic pursuit. I was 17 when I first started reading kind of like wine folly, little infographics, whatever I could find on the internet, and then I started doing WSET courses, and then COVID happened, and I kept doing WSET courses after, and then I was at University of Toronto at the time studying. I started in business, and I switched to English and ancient history, and I was studying those at the same time as doing WSET, and then wine just slowly became more and more interesting to me as the levels got higher and the exams became more intensive. I had to spend more time doing it, and then I started working as a sommelier full time at the Four Seasons, really close to my university, which was crazy because I was full time at university. I was doing the
Yeah,
diploma, and I was doing yeah, I was full time at the Four Seasons. So it was a crazy time, and that's kind of when I realized that, okay, I'm gonna start slowing down my university course load so that I can keep up the wine stuff. But I always knew I wanted to pursue the mastery levels when I started, so it's always been kind of part of my plan, so to speak, to become a master in the wine sphere.
well, can you talk
Just for
about what
myself.
can you talk about what you learned sort of working as a som, like on the
Yeah.
floor
Yeah.
at a place like that?
Yeah, totally. So for me, I love talking to people, and I love getting people excited about things. And I find sometimes on Instagram, it's great, but you don't get that personal connection because obviously you're posting things and beyond comments, it's not really there. So I loved working on the restaurant floor and sort of, you have a guest who comes in and they're talking about their day, maybe they're not having the best day, and then you can just like share with them this excitement and just make their day better and make them excited. Like I really wanted every single person there to be excited about what they were going to drink, like genuinely enthusiastic. And I think that it was a really special time for me because it gave me more understanding of the world of wine in its context in restaurants. And it's mind blowing to believe that that was such a fulfilling part of the wine industry, and now I don't do that really at all anymore. And I have found a whole nother way. But I think learning things about people, kind of like, for a lot of people wine is everything, but for some people also wine is not really that important. So knowing also when to um, keep talking about it and when to not was something I learned for sure. And that's a key part about being a good somm, I think, is reading the crowd and making sure that they're asking questions and not just listening to you. That was probably the biggest takeaway for me, but also that this is a really awesome industry and career potentially, that really fulfills me.
And it's full. I mean, the thing that I always find when I'm around wine people is that like wine people are mostly really interesting people. Like
Yeah.
for whatever reason, it is a career that attracts people of a certain type. And I'm curious, like, I imagine you must have, but was it hard for you? You would have been like, what, like 21 or something when you were working on the floor as
Yeah,
that
I
som?
was 21.
Did you have trouble? Like, did people not take you seriously because you were so young, or was it just not an issue?
I mean, I am sure they did, but I never really got the feeling that they did not take me seriously. I didn't have many terrible experiences. I think, I don't know, people on Instagram tend to be pretty nice to me too. Like I don't get a lot of direct hate and this is the same in the restaurant. I think maybe I'm just like it was like I was so young that people, they didn't want to be mean or something, but I'm sure that they didn't approach me with the same mentality as someone who was older with more experience. But it wasn't a constant issue or anything for me, and I think that the rest of the team, like the service team, they'd all been there, a lot of them for 20 plus years, and they were really great at, sort of like pointing out this specialty of like the psalm and how it's important to have that knowledge. And here's our person who has the knowledge. So I think working as a team made it better, but I'm sure people were thinking things that I didn't know about. I mean, a 21-year-old, like big smiley, like barely fully grown lanky girl comes up to your table asking what kind of Syrah you'd like to drink. It's maybe not what they're expecting at the Four Seasons.
I mean, yeah, but I think, I mean, you are so genuine, and your knowledge is like so you wear it on your sleeve. Like I would imagine that even if it was a shock at the beginning, people would get over it pretty quickly. Like, oh, okay, like she really does know her stuff. Great, let's go.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. I hope so. And I also think that over and this is something that is really applicable to when you have authors who write books and people think that they have one perspective and this is I read their book and I liked it or I didn't, but people forget that these authors also have entire careers, right? And you
Right.
think about how much you change over 40 years in your career. And so the person I was in that restaurant maybe didn't have the depth of knowledge that I do now, but and so it was an experience that led me to here, but at that time I definitely didn't know yet nearly as much. So it was a bit of a struggle sometimes trying to learn things along the way that to support my sommelier duties, but I figured it out.
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of the formal wine education, because that's not
Mhm.
something that even the majority of serious wine lovers pursue. You just passed your advanced SOM exam, which is
Yep.
awesome. Congratulations.
Thank
Um,
you.
so that's a really big deal. Can you talk about what it is about these kind of formal study programs that appeal to you?
Yes. So I really love challenging things. And so when I, like, a little example is when I was 17, I didn't have a summer job. And my parents were saying, like, you need to have a summer job. What's going on? It's April. Like, get yourself together. And so I took away from that, and I looked on the internet, like, most difficult summer job, and I found this job in northern Canada, tree planting, and I planted like 4,000 trees per day for the whole summer, and got like helicopter dropped into my tree planting zone and picked up, and I slept in a tent the whole summer, and it was crazy. And I literally just did that because it was super difficult, apparently. And I love to challenge myself, and I've always been like that. So I think that this sort of these quote impossible wine exams kind of work for me because they're so challenging, and I love to push myself and I love to live in fear that it might not, like, that I don't know, it's kind of strange, but I just love, I guess it's like ultra marathoners or something like that, like the challenge. And I think it's a different dimension of living. It's just like caring about something so deeply, and it's such a joy to care about something no matter how much work it takes to support that, the care. I really love it. It's probably something that you can relate to too, right? With the winery, like it takes probably everything out of you at times, but if you care about it deeply, it's so fulfilling. So I think it's kind of all that stuff.
I had never thought of the pursuit of something like that as being kind of akin to like an extreme sport, but it like I think in some ways it kind of is. Like you might otherwise have chosen to do, I don't know, like rock climbing or cliff jumping or like
Yeah, who
something
knows?
that would challenge you every day. It's interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of I guess why I've fallen into it. But also I think wine has this really cool way of being applicable to so many people, and it's something that's so misunderstood. It's something that people are very uncomfortable about. And so if I also saw when I was that age, a late teen, that I understood that a career is based on adding value. And so if I wanted to be successful, I always knew I wasn't going to do a normal kind of job because I was just a bit like different. But I knew that the source of success is um, adding value to people. And I saw with wine that there's a huge opportunity to add value to so many people because so many people are confused, and it's like seeing, like, adults talk about wine is like watching them ski or skate, and they're just like so scared. It's like pure fear, right? It's discomfort because they don't understand, and they feel like they should understand, and they're embarrassed that they don't understand about wine, and they want to learn more. So there's just so much opportunity to lift people up and make people feel better and add value in wine too. So I think it was the mix of the challenge and then the relevance, and also, wine is kind of controlled substance sometimes, and it's like fancy, and it's got this whole other element and travel. I think being in the wine industry is a life hack because it's the coolest thing ever, and you get to call all of this stuff work, right? So it was kind of all of that, I guess.
And it probably tied into the fact, I mean, you said you were studying ancient history. I mean, there's like
Oh
history
yeah.
components. One of the things that I think like keeps me interested in it is that there is a little bit of everything. There is chemistry, there's biology, there's geology, there's history, there's culture, there's
Hmm.
business, I mean, you mentioned travel. I mean, there's all of these different
Yeah.
pieces that tie into a kind of a life in wine.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. It's never tiring. It's always there's always a new, if you're kind of sick of one aspect, you can always move on and look at some other sort of different angle and revisit whatever later on. I don't know. I never get bored.
No, and I mean that's true. I spend a fair amount of time with Master Soms and Masters of Wine, and like they are always learning new stuff. They are definitely not like, okay, I reached the end of the internet. Like there's nothing more there. Like there's wine is kind of like that. There's always more.
Yeah, there's always more, and you're never actually like the real masters will, like, someone knows their stuff when they say that, like, they don't know, because the more you know, the less you know, right? So
Absolutely true.
yeah, the formal wine exams are super fun because they force me to level up my knowledge, and by a certain date, kind of, you have like your exam dates, and I learn so much every time I prepare for exams. So I'm also doing the Master of Wine. I had my first exam last year, and I have my stage 2 exam coming up in June. So it's kind of juggling both of the programs that has added another element of craziness to my
Yeah.
life now too.
So let's talk about that a little bit because
Yeah.
there are sort of three main education tracks for people who wanna get really serious about their wine study. There's like the WSET, then there's the Court of Master Sommeliers, then there's the Institute of the Masters of Wine. Like
Mhm.
how did you pick which ones you were focusing on, and like how do you see them differentiating themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest difference is that Master of Wine is more academic and comprehensive in terms of the wine industry. So you can think about it as like a wine trade where you have so many aspects in order for the wine trade to operate. And like you have five papers: viticulture, winemaking, handling, so like quality control, and you have to write essays on procedures for quality control and all that stuff, and finishing and stabilization and safety. And then you have a business of wine paper, and then you have like a modern issues paper. So um, climate change is a hoax. Discuss. Just the British people dropping a bomb on you. So that's a Master of Wine, and then it doesn't really cover that much about appellations. Like you don't need to know the all of the Grand Crus of Burgundy, which is crazy, but you don't need to know minimum alcohol, maximum alcohol, how much aging here and there, so much. But for Master Sommelier, those are the things that you need to know.
Right.
So it's completely different. It's you need to be able to just explain all about the different appellations for Master Sommelier, and also blind tasting is a bit different too, but the master sommelier exam does not go into as much depth about viticulture and
Right.
winemaking and the business of wine, and clones and hybrids and all that stuff. So that's the biggest difference, I think, is the material. And a lot of people think that if you're studying for one, it really just like you're studying wine, it's the same. And it's totally different, completely different. They help each other, but they're definitely not the same sort of activity of studying.
Yeah. No, cool. I think that was a great way of explaining the difference.
Thanks.
So, um, okay, let's talk a little bit about kind of Cokie's World of Wine as you have created it. Like when you started it, and when did you start it? 2020, 2021? When did you?
I started it in 2021, I think. Yeah, I was working at a vineyard in the summer, and that's when I started it.
And like, what was your initial idea behind starting this Instagram channel?
Yeah, so I just started because when I was kind of like you show your ripeness of your grapes. That's why I started it, sort of. I was working at a winery in the tasting room, and I would walk from my car to the winery tasting room, and in between there was this little vineyard, and so I would go by and like see the grapes ripen all summer. And so I started a channel to talk about how the grapes were changing and do a taste test, and let's see how they're tasting today. Oh, they're really sour. And it was just my parents and their friends following for a long time. And then I started doing more courses, and I learned what Chardonnay was, and that was cool. Like, this is a white grape, guys. Like, who knew? And then I had this whole like, is it a grape, a place? Like, there's so many words that we know are related to wine that we use that we don't actually know what they mean. And so I think being able to decode that for my parents and their friends was the beginning. And then my dad would text me and say, "Hey, the server from my restaurant that I'm at right now is following you now. He's really excited." And then I would get a notification like, "You got one follower." And that's kind of how I got to 800 followers or something, is because of my parents'
Uh,
aggressive aggressive
Great.
advertising.
Was there a point at which you sort of discovered your voice, like where you knew, okay, now I realize I maybe have been doing things this way, but actually I feel like I'm more effective when I do this?
So that is a constant mission for me, is to understand and find my voice. And um, I think that for me, the most effective way is when I um, when I use Instagram sort of as a outlet for a stream of consciousness, like real, authentic thoughts that are going through my head. And anytime I try to orchestrate it too much, it becomes, it doesn't work as well, in my opinion. Like, it's not as good. When I post a video, I know if it's going to do well or not, usually, because I know if it's a great video or not. And the reality is that if your video adds value and people are better off after they watched it, then it's going to do well. And as long as you don't talk too slow and it's not too long, like, you're good. So that's generally the approach that I take, is I try to not waste people's time, and yeah, be really respectful of their time, and so talk as fast as I can in those videos. But I think like beyond that, a lot of people are more aware of their analytics and everything, but I kind of just try to post things that make people's days better, and try to do that as often as possible. But I find my voice, and then maybe I'll lose it for a month or two, and then I'll kind of find it all of a sudden. And it's a bit of a strange adventure that sometimes becomes stressful if it becomes a while where you feel like you're not, it's not there, and it starts to feel like, oh, I don't know, missed opportunities and all that. But yeah, I think my voice is pretty unique because I just, yeah, say what I'm thinking, and I don't think about it too much at the same time.
I mean, one of the things I admire about your posts, and it's true with your videos, is particularly true, I think, with your stories. It's like you have so much kind of openness and honesty about how hard a lot of these things are. And I'm curious, is it hard to show your vulnerability?
It's a good question. I don't, in the moment, it's not. Sometimes I find that, so things that get in the way of me doing that would be other people. So if I spend more time alone, then I find I am better at it because I have like time to reflect and then time to just share this. And I also want to share it with someone or something. So it's kind of like a journal in a way. And so I don't think it's not very difficult for me, to be honest, but sometimes I second guess the things, and there's certain topics that I don't tend to touch on, and so if something's too linked to one of those, maybe I'll feel like uncomfortable about after. So if I'm able to have time alone and share what I'm really thinking, I find it the deeper I get and the closer I get to how I'm actually feeling, the more effective it is, and the more people relate to it. And
Totally.
so just being able to really go deep and really explain what you're feeling and nail those feelings clearly are, I don't know, that's what works. But it is difficult sometimes, and sometimes I worry about, like, if I think about people that follow me, certain people who I really respect, and then I imagine them hearing that I'm, getting up and I'm going to the gym now, like, do they really need to hear that? And then if you start thinking about that and who's listening and
Oh man,
what would they
that's
think and what would
crazy.
that person think and what would this winemaker who I'm, so into, like, what would they think? And it's just it can become overwhelming. So sometimes you just have to do it and not think too much about it.
Yeah, I mean, it can be paralyzing if you
Yeah.
are always worrying about what is going to happen. But I mean, I think
Yeah.
you're right that people ultimately connect to authenticity. I mean, we see that for sure in the kinds of things that we post. If in some ways, like it's a mistake to make things too polished because it like
Hmm.
people a lot of times then are like, yeah, this is slick. This is manufactured. And really what they want is they want to know you. They want to build a real connection.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it is difficult to be honest with yourself and say, like, did I go deep there, or was that too deep? It's a difficult question to ask, but I think when you can be really honest with yourself and honest with your audience, that's what stands out today. And people, it's actually not that common that people really say, like, for me in my exam, I was like, guys, I'm terrified. I've never felt like this, and I feel just like I want to be in the fetal position right now. And it was so dramatic, but I know that everybody in that exam who really cares about it felt the exact same way. It's just that maybe they write it in their journal or say it to one person or nobody instead of out there. But I think that for people to see that it's okay to feel those things is helpful, maybe.
I remember realizing fairly early on when I mean I've been mostly writing our blog for 20 years at this point, and I realized pretty early on that like the best blogs were when I was writing about the things that were keeping me up at night, like and being honest about that. Yeah, so like kudos. I know it's not easy, but
Yeah.
I think it is one of the things that makes what you do special.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm curious, like, was there a moment like in this journey where you were like, man, I'm really good at this. Like the people are really connecting. Like was there sort of an early viral moment where you were
Yeah.
like your eyes were open to the potential of what you could do?
I think that so I was working at the Four Seasons when my audience went from 800 people to 100,000 in 3 weeks.
Oh boy.
And I was working at the Four Seasons, and I actually had gotten a concussion while I was working there. And so I was in bed and for several weeks. And I remember just getting the notifications, like boom, 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 and it was blowing up. And and yeah, that was the moment that I realized that this was gonna become, I don't know, a larger audience. And but it was separate for me than other realizations. So even today, I still continue to have them where I think it takes a couple of years for people to realize that you're not just like a viral thing that's going to go away. And so once they start to be more comfortable, especially with the wine industry, things happen slower. So now it's really, I feel so lucky that I have access to so many cool wineries and so many cool events, and certain people will respond to my questions that may not respond to a random person's questions. So there are a lot of things that even now I'm so grateful to have come from it going viral. And so I'm still kind of realizing it today, and it's still surreal. I think I used to look at people who had a lot of followers and imagine them as these celebrities who are different, but actually, like, I feel the exact same way, and after I meet people, I worry about what they thought about me, like just like everybody else worries, in the same way, and you don't feel different. And I think that's it's been an interesting journey for me to I don't know, to experience all of that, and I think it will continue to be interesting, and it adds its own sets of issues, I guess, too.
No, I'm sure it will. Okay. I have one more hard question. Whatever, not hard question, but like deep
I
one.
love difficult questions. I love difficult things, so you can ask me all difficult questions.
Okay, so here's that question. So there's this kind of theory going around in the world of wine that the challenge, the reason why maybe wine is having trouble connecting with younger potential wine lovers is that it's too,
Mm-hmm.
and that really what wine should do is simplify itself. Talk about that it tastes like cherries and chocolate and is good with pork chops, and and yet, like, you've built this amazing following by really embracing and diving into the complexity that is wine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, like, what's your thought on that theory, and like, how do you reconcile that with your own success and your own approach?
You mean the theory that younger people are less into wine?
That it's like the complexity of wine that is turning them off.
Yeah, so I think that um, it's a good question, and I don't think that younger people are. So I don't have a child, but I remember when I was a child, and I've seen other children in action, and I feel like they can learn things really quickly, and surprisingly, like, I think when I have a child, I'll be able to teach the child to blind taste proficiently if they want to. By the time they're like 6, completely perfectly, because kids are smart, they have senses, and they can do stuff, right? So it's just, if you make it seem complicated, then it becomes complicated. And I think that people forget that there's not that big of a difference between younger people and older people, right? Like, they're just, everyone is younger once, and we're all people with brains, right? Developed brains. So I don't think that it is too complicated. I think that it seems like my generation, so I was born in 2000, and I'm part of this younger generation. It seems like my generation, and I feel the same way too, don't have patience. I The generation doesn't have patience for kind of like, I don't know how to say it nicer, but like BS. Like, they just don't have time for things that, people that make them feel small, people that make them feel weird. Like, they're just gonna go up to their room and go on Instagram or do whatever in their bedroom. They're not gonna sit in the living room and be subject to whatever discomfort is going on. And I think it's a real thing in the real world. And if you make people feel comfortable, they will come. And if you don't, then they won't. And I think if we can create a space that is exciting, everyone will come. Like, my Instagram page was never, it's kind of designed for my parents' friends. Even still, like, I post things that are exciting and clearly articulated, and as a result, sometimes over 90% of the traffic is people under age 35, and it's not my target audience at all I'm doing is speaking clearly and explaining why I'm excited. And so I don't think that we should treat the younger generation differently. I think that if we even oversimplify it, it's almost offensive or something, like, oh, you guys like canned wine because you're young. Like, Maybe, but it's not that simple, right? Like young people actually do have money and they like complex things. They just, if you can sit down with a young person and get them to just give you their attention for a couple minutes, and you can explain why this wine is simpler and this one is more complex. And I think that crazy brands, it would be so cool if they could get their most complex wines in the hands of so many young people, because show them how cool wine is. If you're just learning from really cheap wine, you're never going to understand like how soul touching it can be. And so making those wines inaccessible is a part of the issue. Younger people have money and they're willing to spend it, but if they don't understand what's so exciting about wine, then they're not going to, like want to climb up and learn more about it. So I think just explaining the excitement is really key. And I also think that the whole like trend and how young people don't drink and what should we do, the numbers are going down. I think that if we approach it more like how I approach my exams is the pass rates are 3 to 5%, like for the master sommelier exam that I'm going to be taking soon. So that's really low, right? If I think about it, um, like that, there's a 97% chance I'm going to fail. That's crazy, right? You can't fathom doing that. So I think I need to prepare like the top 1% of people prepare for this exam. And if I do that, then I have a way higher chance of passing. And I think as wineries and as just individual people, if you act like the top 1% of people and treat young people with the same excitement that they respond well to, then you don't need to bother with the trend. The trend is, it doesn't matter to you. Even for regional bodies, like I think that the trend and acknowledging that this is a thing is, unless you're writing the Silicon Valley Bank report on the state of the wine industry, it doesn't really matter, and everybody can act differently, and one by one get everybody more into wine. So I think like getting on the ground and just making today great is the key to doing the best that you can, and not just like sitting and talking about this trend, which I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
I
I agree with every bit of that. I mean, I put that out there as a theory, not something that I particularly think is true. I don't think that
Yeah, but it's a
younger
thing that
generations.
everybody's talking about.
I don't think the younger generations are turned off of wine because it's complicated. I think they are turned off because in a lot of cases it's been boring. Like a lot of the ways that that wineries have talked about themselves and that kind of public culture has talked about wine has been really boring.
Hmm.
Um, but no, I mean, I think sharing the complexity, but mostly sharing kind of the navigation of that complexity, like how you wrap your head around it, is totally the thing to do.
Hmm.
So great, awesome, thank you for dealing with that kind of like deep and difficult question.
No, totally.
Um, so if you had like what would your most important piece of advice be for somebody who is like someone who's just sort of starting their wine journey? Like where
Yeah.
what do you have any like good advice for them?
I think it depends if they want to pursue it as a career or not. If you're working in a restaurant, I think that the CMS certification is a really awesome way to sort of learn and climb up slowly and challenge yourself. But I think if you're a normal person or you don't work in a restaurant, then the WSET is really great. I personally respond well to deadlines. And so I would do my essays in university like 30 minutes before they were due. But if there was no deadline, I would never do it. And so the exams have been really motivating for me personally. And I don't know if I would be able to get this deep on my own without the challenge of the exam. So if you're like that, I think the exams are really key. But there are a lot of really great books out there and podcasts and now Instagram, right? Like if you want to start learning more about something, you can just kind of integrate it a little bit into your feed by following a few accounts. And I think that's also a great way. So it just depends on what you're looking for. But yeah, there's a lot more resources now than there were even just a few years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Okay. What's next for you? Like, what have you've done so much cool stuff already? Like, what's next?
Yeah,
Do
what's
you have anything
next?
you can share? Or are there like secret projects that
No,
you're
no, no.
working on?
Yeah, so what I'm really excited about is I'm doing my first French harvest. So I've done
Cool.
harvest for several years now, but I'm doing one in Burgundy this year, in September. So I'm so excited about that. Uh, then I'm going to be continuing to study for my exam. So in June, I'm going to be doing Master of Wine Stage 2 exam, which is the really challenging one. And then Master Sommelier in April, the following April, theory. So kind of just preparing for those and trying to learn things and then go out into the field and see them in real life, like see the wines I'm studying on the list or see the producers and meet them and go to tastings and just continue to learn as much as I can in the real world and share that with my audience and continue to explain to them why wine is like just so cool. That's probably what I'm going to be doing for the next little bit.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
that's really what you've been doing for the last 4 years. So
Yeah, I guess it's not really new. It's just the
keep it up.
exams are getting more challenging.
Well, Cokie, I cannot believe that we've already been talking for more than half an hour.
Crazy.
I
That went
would
by really fast.
I would happily sit and talk with you all afternoon,
I'm
but
gonna have to come. I'm gonna have to come next time I'm out there. I would love to come hang out at the winery and
awesome.
ask you so many difficult questions in return, like all the nerdy wine questions.
Return the favor. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
if people want to follow you or learn more, I mean, obviously they should be following you on Instagram. I assume they are already. Anything else? Any other ways that they should connect with you?
So Instagram is my main way. I don't even know if there's another really way to connect with me. I mean, you could send me an email, but usually, yeah, Instagram would be the place. Cokie's World of Wine on Instagram, and yeah, that's kind of like the room where it happens.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking a little
Yeah,
time
thank you for having me.
out of your Wednesday afternoon.
Absolutely.
And
This was
I look
so
forward
fun.
to doing this in person sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jason. This is so cool. And thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, seriously. Thanks everybody who's joined. I will be back in 2 weeks. My next guest is Dave Gates, who is kind of a legendary vineyard manager for Ridge. Has been there for 40
So
years. I can't wait to dive deep on the viticulture side. But meanwhile, I hope you have a great
amazing.
couple of weeks. If you are in the wine world and you're getting ready to harvest, good luck. Um, Meanwhile, open something good this weekend.
Good luck.
Thanks, Cokie. Thanks, everybody.
Ciao.